Hello again. Like many people across the world, I think, I was a little taken aback to see parts of the Capitol building in Washington taken over by protesters 3 months ago. I was certainly shocked when it was reported that 5 people, including a police officer, had been killed during this event. When people who are supposedly supporting a president who is strong on law and order end up killing a police officer, this is not a good look, and I think it harmed support for former President Trump. The New York Times reported that the dead policeman, Brian Sicknick, had been beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. After his death, his body was allowed to rest in state in the Capitol. Most unusual proceedings, sort of thing usually it's an honour reserved for statesmen and military leaders. Something which I did find curious as time passed is that details about both the police officer's death and the 4 other people who had allegedly been killed during the occupation of the Capitol building didn't seem to be forthcoming. We now know the reason for this. Officer Brian Sicknick was not killed during the invasion of the Capitol building at all. This was a plain lie, as the Chief Medical Officer for Washington DC has now revealed. He didn't even die on the day of the disturbances. In fact, Sicknick went back to his office on the day of the riot having suffered no injuries. He collapsed and died the following day of natural causes, which related to a medical condition which had nothing at all to do with any injuries he might have received during the events of the previous day. It's fairly obvious, to most of us at least, what has happened here, and it reflects no credit at all on the new administration of Joe Biden. Somebody decided that it would really help to smear Trump if a policeman's death could be laid to his door. A martyr was therefore created, and the New York Times persuaded to print an altogether false account of his death, pretending that he was beaten to death by supporters of President Trump. What about the other people killed during the demonstration? Well, 2 of them suffered heart attacks and another overdosed on amphetamines. In short, not violent deaths as we had been led to believe at the time. The only person actually killed that day was shot dead at point-blank range by a police officer. The current administration had been hoping to bring 2 men to trial on charges of homicide for their alleged part in Brian Sicknick's death, the aim being to revive memories of the events in January and besmirch Donald Trump's name as he considers running once again for president. One does not need to be a fanatical supporter of conspiracies such as QAnon to be getting a little disillusioned with the mainstream media. It was newspapers and television channels which made such a thing about a police officer being killed by Trump supporters, and they're now revealed to have been at best gullible dupes of the new Democrat administration, or at worst dreadful liars. This does not show them to best advantage. And people wonder why there is such an increasing tendency for ordinary folk to rely upon sources such as Twitter and YouTube for information, instead of trusting a newspaper like the New York Times.